Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information, with some laughs, might I add. Hello everyone, welcome to Wilds of Eldraine, episode 7. Well, gotta add more fingers to there, but soon enough, I won't have enough fingers to fit on both hands. Hopefully, spoiler season for this is wrapping up soon, so let's get right into it. First off, we got Regal Bunnycorn? I have no idea. It's a 2-drop white creature that sizes up based on the number of non-land permanents you have. This thing can get really big really fast. I like cards like this. I can see me throwing this in my cube, my two-headed EDH commander cube. If people want to see that list, I was thinking about making a video about me updating it, and I'll show you guys and how I do it. But I'm pretty excited about this. I could see it being played maybe in Standard and in EDH. There's plenty of power, toughness matters in EDH, so maybe this finds itself there. Mostly because you can get to whatever designated power and toughness that you need fairly easily for such a cheap cost that might be too much to ignore. Rankle's Prank. Choose one or more for 4 mana. It's a sorcery. Each player discards 2 cards. Each player loses 4 life. Each player sacks 2 creatures. If I was to play this, I could see myself doing the 2 cards and sacking 2 creatures pretty consistently. The 4 life doesn't really matter too much, but I like this card in Commander, and I like it in even a 60 card format. I think that discard 2 cards and the sacking of 2 creatures in particular can be pretty brutal. The Iron Crag. It's a legendary mana rock for 2 mana. At least it's got the good rate. Whenever a legendary creature you control enters the battlefield, this artifact becomes a legendary equipment with equip 3, and equip creature gets +3/+3 and loses all other abilities. That's kind of cool. I like that if you got nothing else better to do, it turns into a somewhat significant equipment. I mean, people are already running things like Mind Stone and Prismatic Lens, not because of the other things it does, but because it's a 2 mana rock that produces 1 mana. I could see this just getting thrown into everybody's decks just because it's just fun little value, especially in Commander. I don't know about 60 card formats, but this is a really cool card. As for Told's getting a full art treatment, this is the non-anime version. This is normally seen in Legacy and Vintage decks. I've never seen a modern deck play it, but maybe there's a list out there. I'm not sure. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to put a time counter on it, and then on each of your turns, you may play a spell that is equal to the number of counters on this, and you get a spell a turn. You don't get multiple spells a turn. Dragon Mantle, it cantrips off of itself, so I like that for 1 mana. That's a really sweet rate. And on top of that, you give your creature fire breathing, and if you have enough red, that could be a very threatening enchantment. Hatching Plans. They're kind of pulling out all the stops because I don't see this card very often.
Security through obscurity.
When it goes from your battlefield to the graveyard, draw 3 cards. It works really well in ATOG decks because ATOGs typically sacrifice enchantments, but there are other things that let you sacrifice enchantments and or permanents, or like Closet Gix is a 1 mana sacrifice a permanent. Sack this, draw your 3 cards. And then there's, I'm sure, other decks that use this, very niche decks. I don't think this be seeing a whole lot of money. It already is dirt cheap. Compulsion can discard a card to draw a card, or you can 2 mana sack it to draw a card. It's not as good as Trade Routes. Does the job just as fine. Trade Routes is slightly better because you only have to pay 1 mana to do the thing, but at least this one sacks itself, which is kind of cool. You're basically sacrificing variety for 1 land and 1 mana that's still significantly cheaper than 2 mana in any card. But I digress. You could tell me in the comments below what you like more, but I'm still on the firm route of Trade Routes because you can only play a land so many times a turn. Wildwood Mentor. It's a tree folk. Whenever a token enters the battlefield, put a counter on Wild Mentor. When Wild Mentor attacks, another target creature gets +X/+X till enter where X is its power. It's kind of making you want to go in multiple directions. I guess if you stick to just making tokens, this is great because you get to size up one of your weaker creatures by just piling everything on this, and it won't be good enough to just block Wildwood Mentor. They'll have to block a not so relevant thing to stay alive every single turn. I think it works good in Standard, not so much in EDH, but I'm sure someone out there would appreciate that either in plus one kind of strategies or in token strategies or both. Why not both? Ogre Chitterlord. Menace, whenever enters or attacks, create 2 rats that can't block. Then if you control 5 or more rats, each rat you control gets in +2/+0 till end of turn. Whoa. It seems like they're kind of fitting more Titan-esque things without them being Titans. Like, this is an Ogre Warrior. It's not like the giants from core sets from way back when. The black Titan put in 2 zombies on each of your attack. This one puts in 1/1s that can't block, so they're not as flexible. Chitterlord has evasion with Menace, and the rats eventually become 3/1s. That's pretty relevant. Cool card. I'd be interested to see this in EDH. I don't know if it will fit in 60 card formats, maybe standard as like a top end finisher, but 6 mana is asking a lot this day and age. Malevolent Witch Kite. Dragon Warlock with flying, 5/4. Enters the battlefield, sack any number of artifacts, enchantments, or tokens, then draw that many cards. It's kind of like Bantu, that you could sack any permanents to draw cards. Obviously, this shrinks the types of permanents you're allowed to sacrifice by a significant margin, but essentially it's the same thing for the same mana. It's just this one has flying, Bantu had menace. Bantu doesn't see play, so I'm assuming this will see even less play. Standard card, not so much EDH. Lady of Laughter.
No.
At the beginning of your end step, if 2 or more non-land permanents entered the battlefield under control this turn, draw a card. Okay. White's getting a little bit of love, but seems like Wizards is always just like too afraid. They're okay with giving White a little bit of something, but not more than a little bit of something. And that's pretty much the story of White for most of the card advantage cards. It's always a stupid hoop to jump through. Missed it by that much, they say. Stab Wound's getting a flirt. I don't see this card played hardly ever, so I don't expect that to change with this card. Gives your enchanted creature -2/-2. At the beginning of your upkeep of enchanted creature's controller, they lose 2 life. I highly recommend you don't play stuff like this in your decks. If you want removal, play 2 mana or less removal. If you want drain effects, get really big ones, or you could get significantly cheaper ones than 3 mana. Elusive Atta. For its adventure sorcery side, you get to distribute X 1/1 counters among any number of creatures you control. It has X in the adventure cost, so that's kind of nice. And then its blue creature side, it has prowess. Creatures with power less than elusive Otter's power can't block it. The sorcery part and the creature part, they don't really mix. They're like 2 different things. In the comments below, let me know what you think about this card. Vampiric Rites, I think if I remember what this does is you pay 2 mana, sack creature, draw a card, and lose a life. Look at that memory. Sack creature, 2 mana. Oh, I said lose. You gain a life with this card. Even better. Vampiric Rites is just an okay card. It's a nice sack outlet. If your creature's going to die anyways, you might as well activate this and get some value out of it. It's mostly what this card's used for, but Blind Obedience. This card is a stacks piece that can also win you the game because it has that extort. Fun facts about extort is everything that parentheses, including that filter symbol, doesn't alter this card's color identity. So in a commander deck, this is legal in mono white, but not legal in mono black. What it does is artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield, they enter tapped. You really could steal a lot of tempo away from people, especially the artifact part, because people really lean on artifact ramp. If they don't have green in their color scheme, you could really screw them over with this card. You can get a copy of Blind Obedience for $5 from Commander 2016's. I have this one. I'll probably not be giving that up for the other version. The way that extort works is you pay 1 with your spell, either black or white, and you drain each person for 1 life, and then you gain a life back for each life lost. So if there's commander game and there's 3 opponents, everyone loses 1 and you gain 3. Leyline of Anticipation. This is probably the most popular commander leyline because it gives all your spells flash and you can cast it for free on your opening turn. These are the new commander cards that are coming out. I'm not sure if this is coming in the decks or if it's going to be the 8 like random cards that are just going to be slotted into not draft boosters, but into the set booster boxes and collector boxes. See what it does. For 5 mana, you choose a color when it enters, and then you could add 4 mana of the chosen color. Spend this only cast monocolored spells. Then for 3 mana and tapping it, you draw 2 cards. Spend only mana of the chosen color to activate that ability. This card really wants you to lean heavily into monocolored decks. in ramping. The card advantage is sweet. I think this is like Mono White's best friend. Strictly better than Gilded Lotus in certain decks. I'd run Gilded Lotus in a multicolored deck, probably not Throne of Eldraine.
Store the throne!
I can see this being a little expensive and having a high demand. Bernard Ginger Sculptor. Each creature control that's a food or golem gets +2/+2 and trample. It's a 4-mana banned legendary creature. Whenever another non-token creature control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food golem artifact. And it has the traditional, you could sack it for 2 to gain 3 life. It's just turns your creatures that you control that die into little gingerbread men, little 3/3s. You probably value the ETB triggers or the activated abilities over the power and toughness. It's a cool little dude. I don't think these colors ever had like a Reanimator commander really in this color scheme, but now you have a blacklist Reanimator deck on your hands that I'd be interested to try sometime in the future. Corvold the Gleeful Glutton. Costs 1 less for each card type among permanents you sacked that turn. Be a tall order. This is 8 mana to cast. Holy cow. I'm just thinking about all the things that you could sacrifice permanent wise. There are battles which you no longer control once you play them, so might as well scratch that. We have creatures, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, and lands. Those are 5 permanents. I think the things you could consistently sacrifice is probably creatures and artifacts, maybe lands for fetches. We'll cut this cost down to by 3. This is like a 5 mana commander. If you could jump through all those hoops, just seems really hard to do. At least it gives a reward of having haste, and it has flying and trample as well. But if you're going to be casting a very expensive creature, making that reduction is pretty challenging. You better get some action out of it the turn you play it. It deals damage to a player. You put X +1/+1 counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanent types among cards in your graveyard. Damn, that's really powerful. I could see why they made this 8 mana. That bottom ability is pretty darn scary. Really cool card. Not as good as the original Corvold, but Corvold and Bernard, they're outside of the colors of the precon deck, so I know for a fact that these are going to be like the plugins into the set boosters and the collector boosters. They're bringing out a new court system.
Order in the court!
The last time we had courts was Commander Legends, I believe. But I digress. What does this do? You become the Monarch on ETB, and then if you your upkeep, distribute 2 counters among up to 2 target creatures. Then if you are the Monarch, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Oh boy. This could be a pretty scary card. The doubling of counters on everything you have, that would be making me want to steal that monarchy from that person at all times of the game. The only thing that sucks is they probably have big creatures that are ready to crack you for it. And someone's got to bite that bullet. I like the uncomfortable positions you're put in because of this card versus some of the other courts you could probably care less. Court of Embereth. Again, ETB, you become Monarch. If you have your upkeep, create a 3/1 Knight. Then if you are the Monarch, Court of Embereth deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. We're 2 for 2 on applying the pressure and fighting over Monarchy, for sure. I'll give you another thumbs up, Wizards. Good card creation. Court of Lockthwain. If any of your upkeep, exile the top card of target opponent's library. You can play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. If you're the Monarch, until a turn, you may cast a spell from among cards exiled with Court of Lockthwain without paying its mana cost. This is kind of a lame one. You get a free spell a turn, but it's like you're already happy because you get the extra card anyways. I guess it's just like cheddar, but I don't expect people to be like wanting to punch me to deny me a free card from someone else's deck. If I was exiling cards from each opponent, I'd like this a heck of a lot more, but since I'm only picking one, this is a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. Court of Ventress. If you're your upkeep, choose up to 1 target enchantment or artifact. If you're the Monarch, you may create a token that's a copy of it. If you're not the Monarch, you may have Court of Ventress become a copy of it. So no matter what, you choose a target enchantment or artifact. If you happen to be the Monarchy, you get to make a permanent token copy of that permanent. If you aren't the Monarch, then Court of Ventress turns into that. It turns into the target that you choose. So the difference is you get a temporary thing, or you could have multiple permanent copies of an enchantment or artifact. That's kind of cool, and definitely something that puts a pressure on your opponents to do something about the monarchy token. You are 3 for 4 in the thumbs up category of the courts. Beginning of your upkeep, return target permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. If you're the monarch, return that to the battlefield instead. I like this card. Makes people want to hit you. Returning stuff from your graveyard to your hand 3 or less. That seems to be the magic number in white. It's been that way since Sun Titan, and it acts very similarly to Sun Titan. It's more than good enough, in my opinion, because my decks are typically have an average CMC of 1 point something to 2 point something, meaning I always got something to do with an effect like this. And I play Savine's Reclamation in all my decks that have white in it. If I play that, then I'm sure as hell going to play Court of Ardenvale. So 4 of the 5 courts I like a lot. It's much better than the rate of the previous courts from Commander Legends, where I only played like maybe 2, 3 tops, and that third one is pretty fringe. But I really like these courts a lot more, minus the black one. Black one's kind of lame. That brings us to the end of spoilers for today. I actually really liked what I saw, especially from those commander cards. If I had to pick my card of the day, I'm gonna have to give it to Court of Garenbrig because it's the cheapest. And it's extremely threatening as in a game-winning effect. +1/+1 counter theme decks are going to really love this thing. I'm very impressed by it. I hope you all enjoyed. I had a great time. Fun announcement. I just cracked 200 subscribers on my channel. I'd like to convey my appreciation for all the support I've gotten. Been working really hard to earn those, and I hope to continue to earn more in the future. I'm not going anywhere. I think doing what I do, it's not just me for wanting to do it anymore, if that makes sense. I feel responsible not just for earning them, but retaining them as well. It drives me to keep on doing better and keep doing this for as long as I can. Thank you so much. That's all I got to say. So, good night.